Obi-Wan Can Blow Me, Episode 2, the show where the Jedi are simply reduced to babysitters. Now, in this episode, a child decides to jump off a roof and then blames Obi-Wan for it. Quite frankly, I'm surprised he didn't take her back up there and throw her off again himself. But I've reviewed the other episodes, there's a link in the description down below. Now, we start this episode with Obi-Wan at a London tube station for some reason. And Obi-Wan's got a problem because his handheld PSP seems to be broken. So he decides to walk up to this guy at random and tell him, hey, I've been spying on this ship and I'm trying to track it. Can you help me find it? I always think if you're trying to secretly track a group of mercenaries, you should just walk up to the first person you see and start asking about them. They'll definitely know the answer, but the guy says your PSP won't work over here because we block all ingoing and outgoing signals because people like their privacy. I'm assuming this planet also bans Facebook. So Obi-Wan has no idea what to do and how he's going to track down the missing daughter. Of course, the answer on how he does track her down seems to be magic. Now, just like episode 1, there's huge sections of the episode I could just skip past because it doesn't contribute to the episode at all and is simply there to waste time and be filler. This is one of those sections. So is this. He's a homeless veteran from the war and contributes nothing to the entire episode. Are you thinking giving him money will make him come back later in the episode and provide him help and repay him for his good work? No, you never see him again. This woman also serves no purpose in the episode. She starts offering him various different illegal substances to make him forget his troubles, but the entire conversation with her is completely pointless. The only plot-related conversation they have is, I want information about my daughter, she's missing, and she goes, you're never going to find her on this planet, which is disproven like 5 minutes later. So what was the lesson here? She's only stuck on the planet because she has absolutely no idea what she's talking about? Or why else is she here? As an example of a strong, independent businesswoman. But then this kid comes up and goes, oh, you're having trouble? There's a Jedi that can help. Yes, because if I was a Jedi being hunted by an international group of Sith, then the first thing I'd do is send out children just to tell random strangers about me. What next? Is he going to be a Jedi prince with 5 million credits, and if he just gives him $2,000, he can release it all into his bank account? This is the Star Wars version of an email scam. But Kenobi just goes, I thought the Jedi were all gone. And the kid's just like, I'll take you to him to the right price. Honestly, anyone that gets taken in by this scam, you get what you deserve. Speaking of people who are so thick they get what they deserve, this guy is convincing them that he's a Jedi by closing the windows remotely. Ooh. Hey, those people should see an automatic garage door. It'll blow their tiny little minds. His second convincer is to pull a communicator from across the table into his hand. Later, it turns out he's done it by magnets. No, that's literally what the writers wrote. I'm being completely serious. If you ever want to check if your Jedi is a real Jedi, it's obvious, because he'll just say this.
This is a Jedi mind trick.
This is a Jedi mind trick. Force push, force pull. They were basically in Harry Potter now. Leviosa. But Kenobi is watching him scam this couple, knowing he's scamming them, and just does nothing, because why would he? It's not like he's a Jedi or anything, but he's trying to really lay it on thick. You will send them through the gate. It's like, oh, come on, dude, we don't need the constipated voice.
I'm not leaving your mind.
I'm glad you told us, because I thought you just pinched it off.
Force is so strong with you.
Calm down, love. Talk like that'll get you a second kid. Oh, and speaking of filler scenes that were entirely pointless to the plot, that was another one. We're 7 minutes into an exceptionally short episode, and so far, nothing has moved the plot forwards. But knowing it's a scam, he still walks up to this guy and starts telling him how he's looking for the girl. He has this weird idea that every criminal in the entire city must know each other. It's a bit like how so many Americans think because England is such a small country, I must know their mate Dave. But as they're talking to sell the scam, he's like, I will show you the Force. Of course, it doesn't go quite to plan when Kenobi pulls a gun on him and says, I know what you've been doing. You've just been using magnets. Honestly, magnets in your wrist, I'm not sure how convincing that would be. Look at me, I can control spoons. Yes, I know it worked for Yuri Geller for most of his life, but I don't think many other people could pull that off. But Obi-Wan realizes if he wants any information out of this guy, then he's gonna have to sweet talk him.
You're a bottom feeder, a rat who preys on weakness. Rats know more about the sewers than anyone else.
Admittedly, that sweet talking is probably why he's still single. But there's a thing with writing that you can only write characters of your intelligence or lower, and that's why this scam seems to be written by total mentally deficient people. But it gets worse.
Gonna help me find this girl I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Oh, he agreed straight away. He must be telling the truth. And then Kenobi says this.
Can I trust you?
Definitely.
Oh, well, that settles it then. He's a known scammer. He sent a family off to who knows where, and now he's just promised us that he's definitely being truthful with us this time. Yep, I'm absolutely going to do what this man says. Kenobi, though, does. This is only topped by the leap of logic which happens next. When that character says if it's the sewers you want, there's only one place to go. You'll never get in, though. And it's like, what? So essentially, he's just sent him to the first criminal enterprise he can think of, but nobody has any reason to believe that this girl is in it at all. He just sent him to a random criminal enterprise. There was no intelligence that the woman was actually there. And Kenobi, knowing that there's no reason to actually go to this place, goes there anyway. But don't worry, they said he'd never get into the building. So let's see how difficult this is, because he sees someone leaving, and honestly, you can see how he can use this guy as a disguise, because they are the spitting image of each other, and he starts to follow him down a back alley. I don't think we want to know what he did to that guy down that back alley, but he did end up with all of his clothes, so, I'm assuming the other guy had a good time. Nobody wondered why this guy was an alien when he walked out the door and is now a human. No, we're not paying attention to that. This top secret base that you'll never get in can just be walked into off the street with nobody checking your ID. If there's one thing that criminal chem labs are renowned for, it's just being open to the public. But either way, somehow Kenobi is a master of chemistry and manages to make an improvised explosive within the lab. That distracts the security. Kenobi walks past him and does the roughest lift I've ever seen anyone do, where he just grabs something directly in front of the guy and pulls, and his entire belt goes with it, and somehow the guy in the big hood doesn't actually realize. But this gets him through into the second hallway, which he doesn't even know if he should be going into this hallway, because he still has no idea if that girl is even in this place at all. The only reason he went here is because this is the sewer. These two come out from a door behind him and say, "What are you doing here?" He basically says he gets lost, and they go, "Oh, well, you should go back and cook then." No one actually asks him, how did you get lost when that door has a security card on it? But he doesn't like getting told to get back to work. And then we get this weird exchange. I don't know if you caught that. The actors were so slow, he elbowed the other guy in the face, turned back to the first one, and waited for about 2 seconds, doing absolutely nothing until he got punched in the chest. Smack. I mean, are you gonna hit me anytime soon? Oh no, I can't believe you've done that, mate. Come on, dude. If your actors do that in a scene, at least reshoot it. After taking some more hits, it's worth pointing out this guy's a lightsaber, and for some reason, doesn't use it. He also doesn't like using the Force in this. It seems to be if you don't use the Force, then you're just terrible at using it. It's a bit weird. And we start to get all this, like, spinny movement. Oh, I'm pulling him past me and stuff. It's meant to be I'm using your own aggression against you, even though if he just pulled back, it'd stop him. And overall, it's not exactly bad. It's just not what I want from a Jedi. In Star Wars, you've got a lightsaber, you've got Force powers, use them. That's why I'm here. I don't want to see Obi-Wan crying about his hand because he punched someone in the face. I want to see the guy with his face cut off. The best bit is he beats the second guy, not by actually punching him or anything. He just spins him around a few times and then holds him gently under the neck. He literally just grabs him and goes, "Where's the girl?" And the guy could just easily take a step back. That guy isn't injured at all, but for some reason just gives up. If that was meant to be intimidating, it really wasn't. He also asked him as if he was sure the girl is here. He still had no reason to believe she was here until that guy answered. If that guy had just gone, "I don't know what you're talking about," this entire episode would have ended there. Instead, he finds her. Or at least he thinks he does, because, you know, if you've got a prisoner, you'd obviously just put a blanket over their face. I don't know if they've kidnapped a human or a parrot. It's gonna be one of them. I mean, from this, it just looks like they kidnapped a Jawa. And the moment this happened, a Jedi would pull out his lightsaber, wouldn't he? No. Instead, they just grab him and force him onto a wall because he's a complete idiot. Now, I think this guy is meant to be the audience because he just keeps talking about how stupid Kenobi is and he was amazed that a Jedi would actually fall for it. Now, it is only after this guy has punched Kenobi in the stomach that the other guy decides to search him and finds the lightsaber, which Kenobi could have used at any point and just chose not to. And the guy can't stop bragging, "The Inquisitor will be here soon and then we'll all be rich." Yes, he's one of those villains that just loves to tell the good guy all of his plans, exactly who his boss is and what's going to happen. But Kenobi starts asking him, "Where's the girl? She must be close." He's like, "It doesn't matter, you're not getting out of here." But that's when Kenobi pulls out his little surprise he cooked up earlier, smashes it on the ground, pulls up his mask, and then locks them in the room. And I think it's trying to imply that he only got captured by those people to ask them where the girl was, but considering they didn't answer him, that entire scene was completely pointless again. It would have been far more fun if he'd just cut them all down with a lightsaber and moved on. Of course, that would have been quicker and taken more time in choreography and been more expensive. So instead we had a boring chat that didn't go anywhere. Strong Type B of power, though, has arrived. Meanwhile, Kenobi goes to this door out of all of the other doors and puts his hand on it as if he can sense it. Then he opens it, and and there she is. So he can sense this girl, but for some reason opened up the wrong door, which had a robot in it, even though he couldn't sense it. You really have to decide if he can sense her or not, because if he can sense her, then he should have known the first one was a trap when he went in there in the first place and not been surprised. And if he can't sense her, then how on earth did he know to open this door specifically out of all of them? Look, if you want to use the Force as your little magic get-out-of-jail-free card, then whatever. But please, whatever your rules are, stick to them. But he's trying to control her and get her to come to him, and she's still like screaming, let go of me, I want to go on my own. Do you realize that you're about 1.5 foot tall, and you acting like a petulant little brat does not make you a good character or a strong type B. I don't know why we've got this tiny 6-year-old running around as if we've got any idea what's going on, but the very idea of it is ridiculous. I don't know whether they're trying to imitate the Baby Yoda storyline, but it doesn't work with a human that you're trying to make out as if they're actually an intelligent adult. And the way she's behaving would also be insufferable if she was an adult, because then she'd just be Quan from Halo. And he's like, come with me. Why should I trust you? I don't know. Because you're a tiny little child and you don't have much choice. I think this is the perfect opportunity to point out the size difference between the two. His hip comes up to her head. But Disp, it seems weird that you're pointing out their leg sizes. Yes, it's something that I shouldn't need to point out, but the show is going to do something so monumentally ridiculous that I think a little foreshadowing is in order. Because they start to sneak through the city as much as you can with someone in bright red clothing. Meanwhile, the people that he locked up with his little bomb are off their faces. Hey, say what you want about Kenobi, but that guy can cook. I don't know why Obi-Wan got a job cutting up meat when it turns out he could have just been Heisenberg of Tatooine. But strong type B of power opens the door, sees them all completely off their faces, and says,
where is he?
Yeah, I'm sure you're definitely going to get an answer out of them, love. Maybe if she spent more time in that room, she might chill out a bit. But Kenobi's had enough of dressing like Heisenberg and says they need to change. Of course, this involves him taking off his clothes, which leads Leia to actually spot his lightsaber. The problem is he's in the middle of a busy street, which means everybody can see his lightsaber. He's on a planet surrounded by bounty hunters, so he basically has a neon sign above his head that just says, shoot me in the face. But he doesn't seem to be too concerned, because she points out he's a Jedi, and he just looks around and goes, shh. Yeah, it's not her saying it you need to be worried about, mate. Everybody can see it. It is a physical object. But at this point, Leia decides, I'm just going to run off, and immediately runs into this dude and gets scared. It seems that acting like a brat all your life, running off and getting kidnapped, still doesn't teach you even the most basic fundamentals of how to survive in the reality. No, she's just too amazing, you see. Her decisions are always the best ones. Yeah, because Obi-Wan even tries to tell her, you have no idea what I'm risking here. You have no idea what the dangers are. You need to do what I say. Of course, she doesn't listen to him. She is so immensely thick in this episode, it's actually beyond belief. But strong type B of power has a different problem, because it seems like she's pissed off the Three Stooges, one of which is new and we've never seen before. I don't know why. It doesn't introduce her. She's just there all of a sudden. Turns out they're not happy that she would kidnap an Imperial Senator's child. But what's her amazing defense for disobeying a direct order?
We've done worse.
Bet it took you months to think of that one. But she explains that basically Kenobi and her father had a link, so she thought kidnapping one would draw Kenobi out, and she's right. But everyone's mad at her anyway, because he's annoyed that she didn't tell him. I don't know why he's annoyed that she went against him directly saying you need to stop looking for Kenobi. And her only excuse is, well, you left me no choice because you said I couldn't, so I did it anyway. At this point, there's no reason they should be putting up with her arrogant, petulant attitude. They're Sith. Apply lightsaber to face. But rather than doing anything about it, this guy instead decides he's just going to randomly insult her. It's like, whatever power you crave, it won't change what you are. The least of us. You came to us from the gutter and your ability gave you station, but it will not mask the stench. So does she respond to this put down from her superior with any kind of sense of humility?
Maybe that stench is your failure.
No. Apply lightsaber to face. Of course, this guy can't do that because it's Disney. So instead, he just tells her to go off, leave Kenobi alone, and he's going to track down Kenobi on his own. This scene makes no sense. It makes no sense why he's putting up with her bad-mouthing him when she's, by his own words, beneath him. But Disney has set this whole thing up where they can't actually engage in the power dynamics that would have an effect because of the cast members they put into each role. Disney can't overcome the plot armor which has to happen in this case. So instead what you've got is an Inquisitor putting up with open rebellion and disrespect to his face, and he's not even doing anything to her about it at all. There is no discipline at all in this. Why? Because it's not the power dynamics that Disney want to portray. These are not writers writing how people would actually respond given their characters. These are people writing under the strict social commentary which Disney want to force upon people. Oh, I'm so oppressed. But if I just stick to my guns and do what I know's right, then I'll teach the world I'm powerful and get one over on everybody. The show is definitely trying to pitch her as the good guy in this scenario, which is pretty amazing when you think of everything we've seen her do so far. Oh, I'm the downtrodden one. But downtrodden or not, she doesn't listen to that guy at all, which is why he should have applied lightsaber to face. And so she sends out all of the bounty hunters across the city after Obi-Wan. Not because she thinks they'll capture him, but because it'll make enough noise to make him scurry out of whatever rock he's hiding under at the moment. So we get a scene out of John Wick where all these bounty hunters start getting notifications that you've got a new target to hunt. And there must be a lot of them because he's just walking down the street and suddenly realizes there's loads of notifications going off around him. Seriously, how many bounty hunters are in this city? Having found out that all these bounty hunters are after him, his first instinct is to go dress shopping. He's looking for a disguise and she's after something shiny, which basically symbolizes why she should never make a decision about anything in her entire life. Remember, the show is pitching her as the intelligent person in this scenario. She also takes this opportunity to steal some gloves. I mean, she's only running for her life, not listening to the guy who saved her. What could possibly go wrong? At this point, he might as well just ditch her on the planet, but apparently no. We've got to put up with her for a while yet. Because she starts making digs about his age, you know, to the person who's risking his life to save hers, and yet she still has no kind of respect for the man. And she's just randomly running off and touching food and smelling things and going all over the place. I didn't think you could make a character as annoying as Quan from Halo, but don't you know they've gone and done it 3 times over. She's like, you sound like my parents. What, are they trying to save your life as well? Here's an idea. Have you tried listening to anyone for once in your life? Obi-Wan should just call her parents and go, I was going to save her, but she's completely insufferable. She's on her own. Because the 10-year-old whiny little brat now starts questioning that he's not a Jedi because he hasn't used his lightsaber and he hasn't used his powers. I mean, he's only gone and saved your life. That might be a reason for you to actually trust him because you were kidnapped, so you're clearly in a better situation now. No, but no, I'm little Mrs. Smartass and I know exactly everything about the world, despite the fact that I'm 10, and so should just shut my mouth and do as I'm pissing told. So she starts going, if you're a Jedi, prove it to me, make me float, I want to float. I don't know if you're paying attention, dear, but people with guns are trying to kill us all, and you want to float in the air, you crazy lunatic. I have no idea if this is meant to be endearing. I have no idea if other people find it endearing. But I find it incredibly annoying. She just won't shut up. In every scene, she's just whining about... This is why parents should discipline their children, because if they get kidnapped, the person saving them has to like them enough to actually continue doing it. She even asks him his name. He says Ben, and she goes, that's not a Jedi name. Oh, I'm sorry, little Miss 10-year-old, that you might actually have a dictionary full of Jedi names and happen to know everything in the universe. But here's an idea. You're 10 years old, and so you know literally nothing about anything because you're a thick little child, and I don't know why we're all supposed to pretend that you're not. And doing things like this doesn't make her any less insufferable. When she's like, well, you think the less that you say, it means the less that you give away. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Oh, I apologise. You've read a bumper sticker once. But these attempts to try and make us desperately think she's intelligent, when all we ever see from her is acts of complete and utter stupidity, isn't convincing anyone. And he's like, how old are you? She says, 10. You don't sound as if you're 10. No, she doesn't sound like she's 10. Because she's written by an adult, and the adult doesn't know how to write children, or how children behave, or how humans behave, or basic social interaction, or anything that requires even a modicum of talent. I've accepted that, I just wish they'd written Kenobi to have actually accepted that by this point as well. But little scam artist runs up to the fake Jedi and says, oh, we had him, we had the Jedi, look at that bounty number. And so fake Jedi is a man with a plan. It's just that his plan isn't very smart, and doesn't really achieve much. So Kenobi decides to walk up a completely empty alley, and just as he turns around, a bounty hunter walks out behind him. There are so many ways the writers could have introduced us to the first bounty hunter, so I have no idea why they chose something this laughably coincidental. None of the bounty hunters in the street saw us, but walked down a back alley and suddenly, yeah, there's one there. Either way, Kenobi just decides to punch him in the face. I mean, it's not civilized, but it works. But this guy's got a plan. We're going to lock down the ports, we're going to flood it with people, we're going to flush him out. Unfortunately, Type B of Power has been outed, when this woman finds one of the bounty hunters. Considering how they seem to be on every street corner, it's a bit surprising that none of them noticed one of them before. Of course, he sounds annoyed when he says, Reva. But by this point, he's had so many chances to do something about her and has never done a single thing. I'm really not sure why he's angry. Type B of Power, though, has a different plan. And that plan is to be Batman. Yes, I'm going to sit on this roof and just wait and hope something falls into my lap. The fact that it doesn't make it any less a terrible plan. But Kenobi tells Leia to stay there, and then goes off to turn off the communication device from the bounty hunter, which is just showing his face. Of course, because Leia can't obey one single instruction for more than 1 second at a time, immediately ignores it and comes over to see what he's doing. She sees that the communication device is a picture of Kenobi and starts getting all angry at him. Oh, what's that? Why is there a picture of you? And she's like, oh, that's what you were hiding. The people came after you. I just got kidnapped because of you. And then she starts ranting, did my father even send you? I'm like, well, why else do you think that he would save you? And the simple fact that you realize they kidnapped you to get to him means that you know that he cares about you enough to come and save you, which he did. What we're about to get here is a 10-year-old that's supposed to be mega intelligent and perfect, who is simultaneously completely and utterly thick and can't put 2 and 2 together. And the simple reason for that is because the writers are equally as stupid, so should probably stop trying to write intelligent people, especially intelligent kids. That's how we end up in this stupid scenario. Because she starts screaming, how do I know that you're not the real kidnappers? I don't know. Maybe it's because you were kidnapped. If you're at your parents' house and you get kidnapped away from your parents' house and then somebody save you from those kidnappers, they're not the original kidnappers, you moron. And then she starts screaming how he's not a Jedi. I'm not even sure whether it matters whether he is or not. He still saved you from the kidnappers. And you know he cares about you because they kidnapped you to get to him. If he didn't care if you were alive or dead, then they wouldn't have kidnapped you in the first place to get to him. This is common sense. But common sense doesn't enter into the equation when she decides to run off. Now, remember when I pointed out that his legs were the entire height of her as a physical person? Well, this is why. Because now we're going to get a chase scene. And I thought the chase scene was bad in the first episode, but this takes it to a whole new level. One of the reasons for that is that she can't run. What we get is the most pathetic attempt at running I've seen. I'm pretty sure I could scurry along the ground on my arse like a dog rubbing its backside and still catch her at that speed. But for some reason, we're supposed to think that Kenobi is like a 109-year-old on a Zimmer frame going after her, which is the only excuse he could have for not actually catching her. Because what we end up with is a Kenobi who's being extremely careful, dodging around people, moving people out the way, doing little tiptoe runs as he's trying to desperately move as slowly as possible. And quite frankly, this entire scene is pathetic. And they try and come up with reasons. Oh, look, I've dodged under a small table. He'll never be able to get around that. Or, look, as I run underneath the legs of this animal, completely disregarding the fact that there's huge spaces on either side that adults can run around without being slowed down in the least. And it wouldn't be so bad, but this chase scene goes on for ages. It even tries to spice it up by getting her to run through what I think is like a pet shop, and you've got all these animals in glass tanks with eyes pointing at it, and it doesn't make it any less laughable. Thankfully, it finally comes to an end when one of the bounty hunter grabs her and starts asking where Kenobi is. And then he just gets shot in the back. At this point, you might think that that would reassure her that, oh, he saved me from the guy that was trying to kidnap me again. Of course, that would require her to have the common sense of a normal person, whereas Leia has had one thought her entire life, and it died of loneliness. So despite the fact that Kenobi is fighting with bounty hunters to save her life, she still just runs off and leaves him. The best bit is that she sees him fighting in front of her and could run in any direction, but decides to run straight at him to get away from him. And he could clearly, at this point, reach out and grab her. He's right next to her. Even Kenobi, faking how slow he moves, still couldn't move slowly enough to actually not be next to her in this scenario. Of course, somehow, we get this cut and she's past him and he hasn't stopped her for some reason. Clearly the cut was put in because even the guy editing it thought that's ridiculous. I can't keep it on this camera angle. Meanwhile, we got this Inquisitor bringing in some stormtroopers, which is completely pointless because we'll never see them again and they don't do anything, so this shot is actually redundant. This tiny little 10-year-old has somehow managed to get such a lead on Kenobi that he's not even in this shot, as she decides to climb a ladder to the roof. Because I always think if I'm trying to run away from someone, getting trapped onto an area with no exits is clearly the best way to escape. And when I say she built up a lead, he's only just got into this scene, and she's climbed so far up the ladder, you can't even see her anymore. Her head comes up to his waist. I don't even know how this is possible. So she gets on the roof and starts jumping from roof to rooftop as a 10-year-old. I'm pretty sure the reason we got this camera angle is because she couldn't actually even jump the tiny little gap that they already showed. I didn't think it was physically possible, but this kid actually runs worse than Ezra Miller in The Flash. She can barely even move her legs. And it's so stupid because she has to really struggle to even jump these tiny little gaps. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan can literally just step over them because they are that small. and for some reason still can't catch it. For some reason, this bounty hunter was on the roof in the way she's run, so all she's achieved is to run directly into somebody who wants to kill her. When I say Leia is more annoying than Quan, I mean it. Of course, Obi-Wan, rather than using the Force or anything to stop the man, just yells, "Stop!" Because that always works on bounty hunters, which are gonna kill you. Of course, because Leia has the IQ of an amoeba, she sees a guy who wants to shoot her in the face, sees somebody which has already saved her multiple times from people that wanted to kill her, and thinks, no, I need to run from that guy, and so decides just to run into the laundry, which is coincidentally next to it. Blaster fire ensues, and this attracts the attention of Batwoman. I don't know why she's been doing a hero pose for all of this time. And when I say hero, I kind of just mean petulant brat, which it seems like this series is full of. One day, Disney will write a Type B who actually acts like a normal human being. And on that day, I will fall over in surprise. So Kenobi's returning fire and then decides to run through the laundry himself. Still don't know why he can't catch this 10-year-old child with tiny little legs. And Captain Type B of Power decides to run across the buildings in the most ridiculous way physically possible. Rather than just running around objects, we're like jumping over them because it takes more energy and doesn't actually gain us any speed. We're going to jump on top of things that don't give us any advantage. Literally diving high in the air, even though it's not faster than just running along the ground. The gaps between buildings are getting bigger, but for some reason, people want you to run across their roofs, and so laid down a little pathway for you. That was nice of them, wasn't it? So she's running across a roof, away from Kenobi, while a different person is shooting at her, and she's still running away from the person trying to protect her. I have not seen a character more thick than Leia, despite the show trying to make out that she's actually intelligent. And the thing is, it only goes downhill from here. Because Obi-Wan gets pinned down, so he starts returning fire. But Leia reaches a roof which doesn't have a pathway across it. And she realizes that's the drop. I don't know about you, but that looks like it'd hurt. Then along comes a second bounty hunter, who's a robot, but he mustn't have downloaded his aimbot package because his aim's awful. You'd think that an AI robot would hit its mark every time. I've seen the aimbots in Call of Duty, they don't miss. So now Kenobi is pinned down by two bounty hunters, and it's important to remember there's two bounty hunters, because the show forgets. Meanwhile, Mr. Fake Jedi is also on the roof, and there's no reason for him to appear in this scene either, because we can hear from this scene that he's watching the fight between them. But he doesn't join in, he doesn't help, and him being in this scene is completely redundant. I have a feeling that heavy editing was done to this entire next section of the TV series, because lots of pieces don't make sense, people vanish, people appear in different places, and I think it was heavily cut and changed. Because Jedi never joins the fight, so Obi-Wan is stuck on his own, and that means he can't help Leia work out that you shouldn't jump off roofs, because she's still staring at the gap, and Type B of Power decides that this is a move which is perfectly reasonable to do given the scenario. There was literally no need for her to do that when she could have just stepped over a tiny little obstacle that was right to her right. I'd say she was showing off, but there's nobody there to even show off to. So then she pushes over this beam, and as it's falling, she uses it to jump off of, and I don't think that's how physics works. If something's in free fall, you can't jump off it. Oh, but she used the Force or whatever, the magic kicked in and she saved herself and she did it anyway. Bearing in mind she's already done stupidly high jumps anyway, so she didn't even need to do that, but you know. We've got to show how strong and powerful she is! Now at this point, Obi-Wan finally hits a shot, and so he takes down this bounty hunter. And it's important to remember he took down that bounty hunter, because he's still getting shot by the other one. Not that it matters, because Leia decides she's just going to yeet herself off the building. Absolutely no reason why. She knows that this guy cares about her because he tried to save her. She knows that she was kidnapped to try and get to him, which means that he cares about her. She's in no danger here, and the person closest to her could have easily shot her at any point, but hasn't done because he cares about her. And from those three things, her conclusion is, I better jump off a roof. And obviously, given the fact that she can barely run, she also can't jump that distance. So she falls and grabs one of these ropes, and I would love to know what her plan was next at this point. Because she just ends up in the middle of it, she barely cleared any distance at all, holding right by one arm. She's so thick, she doesn't even hold on with two arms! Of course, Kenobi is always there with a useful piece of advice.
Don't let go, Leia. Hold on tight.
Yeah, I don't know what you thought she was planning on doing. She was just like, yeah, I'm gonna let go any time now. No, don't! Stop letting go! Kenobi is essentially the person in a first-person shooter Twitch chat going, have you tried just not dying? Yeah, if you don't die in Elden Ring, it's really easy. But I will give the show this thing. there was one piece of entertainment in this show, and that is when she lets go and falls many, many feet onto the pavement. And at this point, I'm just waiting for the splat. Unfortunately, Kenobi chooses this point to realize, oh yeah, I'm a Jedi, and that means I can use the Force. And so we just get a hand picture, and he saves her with the Force. And I don't know why he didn't use that at any point during the fight before. Oh, well, he couldn't use it because he hasn't used it for a long time. Okay, but now we've proved that he could have used it. That also means he could have used it at any point before as well. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that other bounty hunter is still alive and should be shooting at him. He only killed one of the two. But Leia gets up off the ground, and Kenobi teleports onto the ground. There was no more shooting, he didn't handle the other bounty hunter at all, and we have no idea how he reached the ground in the first place. First he's up there, now he's down there, and the other bounty hunter, what, he just forgot what he was doing? Is he a Metal Gear Solid enemy, and the moment you went out of his sight for 3 seconds, just gave up and started wandering around? This is why I think that other fake Jedi was meant to be in this scene and was meant to help him with the other bounty hunter. Because he was on the roof, he was watching the fight, and he just didn't do anything. There was no need to show him on the roof where he could hear all of the blaster fire, because he didn't contribute anything. So why was he in the scene? What happened to the other guy? Even watching this, it felt like entire sections had just been cut out. And she chooses this point to say this.
You really are a Jedi.
And you really are mentally deficient. The entire justification for that scene and everything that happened in it is so ridiculous that I think it's worse writing than Halo. And the chase scene in the first episode was bad, but that, I don't think there's any excuse just for how terribly she runs to have nobody just catch her immediately, let alone yeet herself off a building. What on earth did she think was going to happen? But they get to the space dock and realize that all the Inquisitors are there with soldiers, so that's a no-go. At this point, the second bounty hunter turns up and is shot in the back by the fake Jedi. But my question is, what was he doing all the time that you had your back to him when you were looking down at the street and when you left the roof to go down to her? Where was he? But because the writers have no idea how to get him off this planet, they just drop this fake Jedi in and tell him to give him the answer. So it turns out there's another space dock on top of the original space dock, and this one can't be locked down because it's automated. Or if you want all that put into a more succinct explanation, it's coincidental magic, folks. None of the characters deserve this out. They're just given it magically out of the air by a random character that they happen to meet earlier in the show. None of this is earned in any way. And he even says, what, you expect me to trust you? Who'll be there to help me? What are you talking about? These people can help me. I have no idea who you are and you're a scammer. Why should I trust you? And essentially, his answer is, because you should, because I'm trying to be good. And if that sounds like bad writing, I think the writers agree with you, because in the end, he just goes, do you have any choice? At this point, I can understand why Disney call their writers Imagineers, because Neanderthals would probably have been deemed to be a little bit disrespectful. But then he leaves saying, be careful, Obi-Wan, I'm going to buy you as much time as I can. And the time he can buy him seems to be none. And I have no idea why people do this in TV series and movies all the time. I'll stay behind and protect you. And then they just get immediately defeated. So they just give up their life for nothing. It's ridiculous. If you thought the show couldn't get any more ridiculous, then this guy has a spinning double-ended lightsaber, which I believe is pulling the guy in with some kind of whirlwind attraction. It's very weird. Type B of power is extremely angry, which, again, I don't think they're breaking any stereotypes here. She gets down from the building by jumping from wall to wall, and it's so laughable how powerful they're trying to make her look. The more you try and force a character like this on the audience, oh, look how strong she is, the more ridiculous she actually seems. Although the ridiculousness is only matched by this guy, because he starts pulling the same trick on her. Oh, I'm a Jedi, and she can obviously feel he's not a Jedi. So she just smashes him against a wall. He doesn't buy any time at all, and I don't know why he thought he could. You walk up to a Sith, the Sith just goes slash, and that's it, you're gone, bye. But it turns out that she can get Kenobi's location out of his mind. Yeah, that's right. She can read minds. And I have to ask, if she can detect that he knew where Kenobi was, and she can pull Kenobi's location out of his mind against his will, why didn't she do that in the first episode when she was surrounded by all the farmers and Kenobi was 10 foot away and right next to her was a guy who knew that Kenobi was 10 foot away? Why, instead of threatening that guy's family, did she not just read his mind? And the most annoying part of me saying that is that's not even the most ridiculous part of this episode and her power, which they've clearly just made up on the fly and given her in this episode. And the reason why she didn't do it in the previous episode is because I don't think they even gave her that power until this one. They made it up for this scene. In the next scene, they're gonna make up another power for her, and that's why she didn't use it before either. But when you have a character who's supposed to have magic abilities, you should know them in advance so you can write that into the script. And that is what these writers couldn't even be bothered to do. So she reads his mind and runs off, for some reason not even killing him. That's not very Sith-like. And Kenobi reaches the automated dock on top of the other space dock. Now at this point, you can see that Kenobi and the kid are here, and the ship is over here. So to run that distance, it's going to take them, what, maybe 8 seconds if they really sprinted at it? It's not going to take him long. He could grab her and just carry her, because it'd probably take her about 10 minutes to get there unless they started editing the footage like they did before. But don't worry, because they're not just going to get into the spaceship and fly off, because first, we're going to have Leia blaming everyone else for all of her terrible decisions that she's entirely responsible for. Because she says, since I've met you, this has happened, and I just want you to listen to what she blames him for.
I've been chased out at, I almost fell to my death.
That last one just gets me a little bit. I almost fell to my death. Yes, you almost fell to your death, but before that, I think the decision's important. The reason for that was because you decided to yeet yourself off a building of your own free will after you were running from the only guy that was trying to protect you. But no, none of it's her fault, or the fact that she's acting like a jellyfish and they don't have brains. And she has the nerve to go, well, if someone's offering us help, I think we should take it. I'm like, he was offering you help and you decided to yeet yourself off the nearest, tallest building, so I don't know why anyone is taking the advice of a clearly lunatic 10-year-old. And then Obi-Wan says,
Nothing, you just remind me of someone.
Is it Quan? He says she was fearless too, and stubborn. How about stupid, because that's the main adjective I'd use. But they continue walking across the dock, and now they're maybe 5 seconds away from it at a sprint. Now they're at the other end of the dock, behind cover, and could easily sprint to it within seconds. But when they hear a noise behind them, for some reason, he tells her to run off with the key to the ship, and he's just going to stand around and do nothing for a bit. Because Type B of power has arrived. And if as a writer you want to intentionally add massive plot holes to your work, how about this one?
I can feel you.
I can feel you. Yes, she can feel his presence. She couldn't in the first episode when he was right next to her in a shed, but now, oh, she can feel him now. She couldn't read a guy's mind before, but now she can. Maybe if you're going to give someone powers, have them consistent over, I don't know, 2 episodes. And I know some people are going to go, well, it's because now he's used the Force, so now he's got a connection to the Force, whereas he didn't before, so that's why she couldn't feel him. Okay, I can let that go. How about the memory reading powers? The best bit is how he gets out his lightsaber and just has no intention of using it. At this point, the kid has reached the ship and can turn it on, which means that if he'd run with her, he would also be there and the ship would have taken off long before anyone actually got there. It's almost like timing's important in a TV show, eh? But instead, Kenobi's wandering around between the boxes and she's just wandering around as well, and I think this is supposed to be tense, and it's not. And she says, I'm not going to kill you, I'm just going to take you to him. Lord Vader will be pleased. And he looks up as if, Lord Vader? And it's like it's a shock to him, which is weird. And she's like, I'm going to take you to Vader. And there's a big shock. Oh, it's Anakin Skywalker. And there's another big shock. I'm like, oh. Parts of her plots that you never wanted to see put on the screen after an episode of this abysmal quality. This was meant to improve the episode. It didn't. And then she goes, oh, you didn't know, because she's still reading his mind through the boxes, even though she doesn't know his location. Still couldn't read the mind of a farmer, though, in the last episode. Oh, we're gonna zoom in on your face in the dark and it'll be really tense. It's not tense. But she's about to uncover him when her boss turns up. I can stand the reek of your ambition no longer. So he says, stand aside. I can't allow you to lose him again. At this point, he decides to run off to the ship. And I don't know about anyone else, but I can't help thinking that Disney is really trying to send a message with this one as he goes, watch and learn. And then she just does that to him. He is stronger in the Force than her. He should have also have seen this happen in the future, and to have risen to his position should have also have been Machiavellian enough to never have allowed this entire situation or opportunity to have taken place. But this is Disney. And so obviously that guy had to be written like a complete moron. And she says, do you think I would have let you take the credit? Fighting back against oppression. And Obi-Wan does what he should have done all along and runs to the ship. And they just take off immediately, so all she can do is yell and scream at them like a petulant child, which is exactly how she's acted for episode after episode. Just like Leia. I don't know, all I'm saying is there seems to be a pattern between characters that they really want to push as strong and powerful, and being a spoilt, petulant little brat. Of course, Obi-Wan is still reeling from the fact that he found out that his old apprentice is actually Darth Vader. And that's a similar face that I pull every time I realize I've got to review this series. Cut to Anakin and the extremely attractive specimen, which he is. And oh boy, what a horrible mess that was. I don't think any of this episode actually held together at all. The character motivations were all over the place. There was no reason for her to run from Obi-Wan Kenobi. By her own logic, she realized he was a friend and then ran off. Characters like the bounty hunters would just disappear and then teleport somewhere else just when the plot needed them to. He'd coincidentally meet everyone he needed to achieve his mission, and they would send him to the next place he needed to be, even though they didn't know that the girl was there in the first place. We can't keep track of any of the Sith powers because they weren't using them in previous episodes when they were just masters of them in this one. And that final kill on the Inquisitor? What? Yes, on the Sith side, killing your master's kind of a rite of passage and is expected. But because it's expected, the people in leadership positions don't put themselves in dangerous positions where they're vulnerable to that. And so he would have always been expecting her to do something like that. And we already know he can stop her lightsaber with the Force because he's far more powerful in the Force than she is. He's done it before. He could have stopped her with a thought, and yet for some reason he just didn't this time. All that's on top of the fact that she was clearly disrespectful to him time after time after time, and he didn't even discipline her in any way or even get slightly angry. We've got Leia, who's pitched as one of the most intelligent human beings while simultaneously being so thick it's surprising she can remember to breathe. This is a child who literally decided to yeet themselves off a building with no plan of what they were going to do afterwards. And that chase scene, what on earth was going on in that chase scene? Words cannot describe how pathetic it is when you show her running and she runs worse than Ezra Miller. A feat that I didn't think was possible. She barely even moves her legs forwards as she runs. It's more just up and down. Even Ewan McGregor couldn't act like he was running that slowly. And he's done movies where he spent the entire time off his face. So this show didn't make sense. It ruined characters, had tons of filler, and hasn't moved the plot forward at all, and this is a 6-episode series. Honestly, I'm amazed that we've got this bad this quickly. The first episode was boring, but this was truly awful. I expected another episode just like the first one. Boring, dull, and just kind of chugging away until the end of episode 6. I wasn't expecting this much of an abomination to everyone involved in the piece. But congratulations, you subverted my expectations and made something worse than your first episode. And so now I'm just wondering if you can continue to do this jump in quality until the end of the episode. Because if you can, we may be able to plunge new depths of depravity which humanity have never witnessed before. And that will be absolutely glorious. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe. More videos like this in the future. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.